Okay, so 7.7 part 2, so now we're going to talk about standard deviation of a data set. Now the standard deviation is sigma, okay? So when we say sigma x, we're talking about the standard deviation of a data set of all of the numbers set x1, x2, et cetera, all the way up through x sub n. And the way that we find this is we take the difference between each of the numbers in the set, so x sub 1, the difference of that, and the mean. Okay? And we take the difference of each of those, square each of them, add them together, find the average of all of those squares of the differences. We go all the way to the very last term. Divide that by the number of terms, and then take the square root, and that gives us the standard deviation. And what standard deviation does is it tells us how far spread out about the mean, so over the average. So you take the average, that's the middle of our curve, and then standard deviations tell us how far spread the data set is about that mean. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our example. Example 3. Okay, we have finding standard deviation of a data set. So for class A, our first term was 44, so we do 44 minus our average of 76.7 squared plus 52 minus 76.7 squared plus ... so all of those other terms. And we have 27 of them to do, so this is going to be fun. And then 97 minus 76.7 squared. So we have to add up all of those numbers and then divide by 27 and then take the square root of all of that. So this would probably be a good time to pause and go ahead and perform all of this computation here. So 44 minus 76.7, well, that would be negative 32.7, and then you would square that, okay? And 52 minus 76.7, and then square that, all of those numbers, and then add that all up. Okay, so if you've done all of that computation, you should get 4,363.2, or somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, and divide by 27, so that gives us approximately the square root of 161.6. And when you take the square root of 161.6, you get approximately 12.7. Okay. So that means that our standard deviation for class A, our sigma, is 12.7. Now for class B, we start off with 48 minus 77.5. Notice I'm using the average for class B and I'm using the data set for class B. And then 50 minus 77.5, and then ... all those other ones. 94 minus 77.5. Okay. And again, you'd want to go through and perform all of these computations. So if you're going to go through it and do that the 27 times, now is a good time to go ahead and pause. Okay. So your total for the squares of the differences of all of the terms and the mean for class B is 3,656.74. You might get 0.74, 0.75, depending on where you rounded. each of these, but should get somewhere in that neighborhood. Over 27, so that gives us a square root of approximately 135.43, which gives us approximately 11.6. So because Class A has a greater standard deviation than Class B, okay, so Class A has a higher standard deviation, its test scores are more spread out about the mean. So in other words, it's got a more spread out curve, and Class B has a tighter curve. They're more centrally located.